Welcome live into Homefield Advantage, presented by Jake Major with the Bullock Agency of Wyoming and Bear Lake Memorial Hospital, and also special thanks to T7 Propane and First Bank of Wyoming. Anthony Colasuno alongside Aaron Pauling. Elon Olive's feeling a little bit under the weather today, so we're going to do the show without him and message out to him that hopefully he feels better and be able to return to the office tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully he'll be back tomorrow. But we got a pretty good show on tap for you today, as we are going to start with some Evanston soccer, and then we'll move along to the Bridger Valley soccer. As first off, we got to talk about some Evanston soccer that you were there for half of it, but we got to start in Star Valley with the season opener. We'll start on the girls' side, and man, I thought the girls' team came out, and in these two games, I think they've looked pretty good compared to where they were last year after two games. First game of the year, they go to Star Valley. They earn a draw on the road, and honestly, a game where I thought they were the better team, and I think they should have came away with the win. It was just one little mistake in the second half that cost them what would have been 3 points. But still, going on the road against your rival, opening day of the year, and earning a point, that's still impressive.
Yeah, and you speak of Evanston looked like the better team on the pitch that day. And these type of games happen where just one mistake just sends it into a crazy, one mistake just ties up the game or begins a crazy scenario of events where, the game ends up in a draw, but you earn a point on the road to start the regular season. And what a lot of people don't know about soccer, you want to get the win on the road, obviously, right? You want to get those 3 points. But getting that 1 point in a draw is not the end of the world. If you can get a point on the road at your rival's house, that's huge.
Yeah, and you have to feel good about the return matchup with Star Valley coming up at the end of the year at K. Fackrell Stadium. It's just one of those things where I thought the ball was in Star Valley's defensive half for most of the game. Yeah. It's just unfortunate the couple of times it wasn't, ended up in the back of the Evanston net. And, those goals, I think, were early season goals that happened because, you haven't been out on the pitch. You've been practicing in not exactly conditions that would be conducive to an actual soccer game. And I think that's where those two goals came from. And, hats off to the Red Devils. They look so much better in the opening game this year than they did last year. And maybe opponent has something to do with it as well. As, like I said, I thought they were the better team. I think you play that game 9 times out of 10. I think Evanston wins. I think if you have extra time, which I think that's a controversial rule that they don't have extra time anymore. I think if you go into extra time, they had a good chance of winning that game, I thought, in extra time, just because last 20 minutes of the game, it wasn't as dominant as the first half, but I thought the Red Devils, I don't want to say lost their legs a bit, but you could kind of tell it was their first game towards the end where both teams are getting pretty tired, and that's just simply because not every single player has ran for 80 minutes straight yet.
Yeah, and first game of the season as well. You're getting first game jitters out, and those goals are allowed during the first week of the season for almost every single team who opened last week or maybe the week before as well, because soccer started the week before. It's always opening day jitters. It's always, hey, let's try to bounce back from last year, or for teams that won state, let's try to continue the momentum. And it's always nerve-wracking in any sporting game. And I think once the season moves along, we're going to see this girls team settle down just a little bit more and get more consistent on the ball. And overall, those nerves and jitters are just going to wash away.
Yeah, Bella Levitt opened the scoring in the first half. Bella Dover with the goal in the second half. And the Red Devils had their chances to retake the lead after it was tied at 2s. And I think there was a lot of chances where if you told the Evanston coaching staff, were like, hey, you guys are going to be tied late in the game, this is what's going to happen. One that I think of is Kinley Hensey a couple times from the top of the box, just didn't quite get everything on the ball, which, like I said, that's an early season thing. I think as the season goes along, Kinley Hensey is drilling that at least on net. And for the Red Devils, I think after that first game, they had to have been, I'm not going to say they had to have been as happy as they could be. I would say the best word to describe it, I'd say, is satisfied with 1 point, but unsatisfied that they didn't win, because I thought they were the better team. And I don't think you could watch that game and you could have any reaction outside of Evanston is the better team on this day.
Yeah. And, of course, they'll have that rematch later on in the season at K Frackle in a huge rivalry game against Star Valley. But nonetheless, starting with a point on the road to start the regular season is always fantastic. And it puts your team in that driver's seat that point could be a difference between getting a higher seed at regional.
Yeah, and then on Saturday, the Red Devils took on the Jackson Bronx, who are just a really good soccer team, and it's just one of those days. I mean, 6-0, if you compare them to the scores last year, they're not as bad, but it's never easy to lose like that. But I thought they played solidly, as solidly as you can against a team of that caliber. We talked probably ad nauseum during the broadcast about how good this Jackson team is this year and how good they can be. And, 6-0 at home, it stings, but that Jackson team's going to do that to a lot of teams this year.
Also, they're the defending state champions
Yep.
as well. So there's another little, wrinkle to add in, is that, hey, in your second game of the season, congrats, you got a tie at Star Valley, or actually a draw at Star Valley. And now you're against the defending state champions. And I was at that game running camera, and the first 10 minutes went by pretty well for both teams. Both teams were evenly matched. Then once Jackson opened the scoring, it just continued and just flooded Evanston.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like you said, we talked about on the broadcast, getting off to a good start and giving yourself a chance in the second half. And, that Jackson team can avalanche you pretty good. They did it last year to the Red Devils girls team, but they were able to kind of weather the storm. And, that's a tough matchup on the second day of a back-to-back to start the season nonetheless, too, with, you play a full game. It's your first full game of the year. You finally get your legs underneath you. You turn around the next day, and you have to get those legs going again. That's not an easy task against a very good Jackson team.
Also, just with soccer being one of the most adrenaline draining sports and stamina draining sports out there, because you're running for a constant 80 minutes. You have a 10-minute break, but that's not enough time to sit down and rest the legs all the way. You get stretched out by the training staff, and get some kinks out of the legs if you pulled something while running or something like that. But soccer is one of those sports that you don't get a break no matter what position you're playing. You're always walking around, you're always running and trying to go after a ball as well, because in soccer you'll have players chipping it across down the field. Well, now that striker has to go run all the way down there to get it.
Yeah.
Plus the defense that striker is going against, plus the opposing goalie. There's so many factors in that game to go off of.
To me, a lot of it is just being on your feet for that long. Mm-hmm. Like, that is a long time to be on your feet. And even if you're on the bench for the most part, it's cold. So sitting down's not much of an option, because I think you'll freeze up a bit. So being on your feet for the full 80 minutes and back-to-back days, that's something you have to get used to into the soccer season. And it's just something that no other sport can really prepare you for. Obviously, you have to be in shape to play other sports, but soccer is just a little bit different, where basketball, it's more of a sprint back and forth. Soccer's kind of a marathon where you're jogging, sprinting, jogging, and that takes a different toll on the body. But I thought the Red Devils handled themselves pretty well on the girls' side. I think coming up this week against Rock Springs, that'll be a test on Friday for them, and I'm excited to see how they respond after a draw and a loss. But we have to flip it over to the boys' side, and the boys' side of Star Valley, myself and Elon Olive talked about this quite a bit on the broadcast. The opening 10 minutes got away from the Red Devils, and from that point forward, is a pretty evenly matched game, I'd say.
Yeah, first 10 minutes in that game,
Yeah, you give up 3 in the opening 10, you're in trouble. It's just so hard to come back in soccer, because it's not a game. It's not like basketball where it's a high-scoring game and scoring events happen all the time, where soccer is a little bit more of a low-event type of game.
I like that comparison, because on the basketball court, you could start a game down 10-2.
Yeah.
Well, you still have so much time left to go, and there's a chance that you guys that team goes on a scoring run and makes a 14-12 game in a matter of 3-4 minutes. You know? But with soccer, 3 goals in 10 minutes. That's a huge hole to climb out of. because one of the main things about soccer is grappling for that possession of the ball, and whatever team usually dominates possession usually wins the game. It's very rare that you have a team come back but also not have the full possession throughout the game and win. Those performances are the clinical performances, the stuff of legend games we see on the pro level.
Yeah, and I think there was a lot to like in that final 70 minutes of that game. Just obviously they were unable to break the barrier to score, but I thought offensively they had some attacks, just maybe a couple attacks where they're a couple inches off, or instead of it hitting the center of the foot, it bounces up on a player, catches their shin pad, goes over the net. And I thought they had some opportunities to at least get one in that game. But like we said, when you put yourself down 3-0 10 minutes in, it doesn't really matter who you're playing. It's going to be real tough to come back in that one. But I thought the boys got off to a better start in that game. Or, excuse me, not a better start. I thought they played better towards the end than they did on their start. And we have to talk about the Jackson game, unfortunately, on Saturday. And my biggest takeaway from that game is the WHSAA needs a mercy rule. 16-1. There's no reason a game should get that far out of hand. It's just, it doesn't do anything for anyone, in my opinion. I don't think neither team got better in those final 20 minutes where, Jackson, for the most part, they did empty their bench, and they did start playing players out of position, like their center back was playing striker, and they're trying to get players in different spots to try to navigate the final 20 with it being such a wide margin,
and of course not score more goals. And
but
a center back at striker, for those who are not soccer fans, center backs are not known as the pinpoint shooters on a soccer field. So Jackson, yes, they did try their best to play some sportsmanship and empty their bench, and it's a tough loss, a very tough pill to swallow for Evanston, and I would even say a tiny bit for Jackson when it was 10-1 or 12-1, and Jackson just kept finding those easy ways, and I could tell that some of the Jackson players after scoring the 15th goal were like, can we go home now?
They're just, I think, see, to me, the extra time rule, I don't like that rule. We should do as much as we possibly can to not have games end in draws. I'm not saying we should go to a penalty shootout for a regular season game, but we should go to extra time. It's high school soccer. It's not the Premier League where you're going to play each team twice. That's 34 games in a year. And then you have, your international play, and then you have your La Liga or your European, championship leagues play if you make it that far. Like, these kids are going to get maybe 20 games this year. Let them go to extra time. And if I get the concern about the season getting so compact that overuse injuries were happening, but add a mercy rule. If you're that worried about getting players off their feet, instead of taking away extra time in close games, let's get rid of the second half in a 10-1 game. In Michigan, you could be ochoed by a team, which basically means that they're up 8 on you, and that's the end of the game. It ends there. Yeah. We talked about how unlikely it is to come back from 3. Make it 8. Like, that's just unheard of.
Above 3-0, and you're not coming back. That's plain and simple, unless some miracle happens. And very rough result. I think there should be some sort of mercy rule added in, maybe at 10, maybe at 11 or 12.
Yeah, I could even live with 10. If you wanted to go to 10, that's fine, but I think 8's the perfect, because a lot of the second half was, I don't want to say meaningless, but it was garbage time.
Yeah.
It's just the end of the game. We're trying to run the clock out, and you can't, like in basketball at 35, you can have a running clock, and that really makes a difference because it's just 8 straight minutes of, all right, we're done now. Where in soccer, the only time the clock stops to begin with is after a goal. And realistically, picking the ball out of the net and bringing it back to midfield, that only takes like 10 seconds. So you're only really burning off 10 seconds of clock. So I think a mercy rule. This might not be the opinion of some people, but if we're worried about overuse injuries, I think the mercy rule should help, because you get off the field when you're down 8 and you don't play the entire second half of that game. 1, it saves both teams a half of on their legs and on their feet and moving around, and 2, it gets games that are well out of hand. It just gets them done. And maybe they don't want a mercy rule because that's kind of, we want to play it out. We want to play the full 80. You continue to coach, as the Red Devils did. They continue to coach, continue to play, continue to try to get better. But I just think there should be a mercy rule. Every other sport has one. Soccer should have one as well, just because you'd really hate to see someone go down with an injury 20 minutes left in a 13-1 game.
And also, when the game kicked off on the boys' side, it was sunny, clear blue skies. And then probably around halftime is when we saw that snowstorm move in last week. And, it was a rain-snow mix. But for sure, we could feel in the booth because we had the windows open. That temperature dropped.
Oh, yeah.
We could feel it, and we all put on our jackets, and cold weather is the nemesis for outdoor sports.
Yeah, especially this time of year.
Especially this time of year, and that it could greatly affect a player's ability to go after the ball and to motion. And, these athletes learn and also are known for going after the ball, giving 100% their effort, and injuries can happen in those type of moments, especially in very, very cold games. And overall, going back to the Red Devils, they never gave up. And that was the most important thing. And allowing 16 goals in the back of your net, that's not the most best situation, I should say. It's not the most, it's not the best situation, especially your second game into the season. But what they can do is they can definitely learn from this and take it with a grain of salt and say, hey, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's go back to practice. And let's see what we can definitely work on towards the future.
Yeah, at this point for the Red Devils, it's about their response. You can have that game happen, but if you respond with a really good game against Rock Springs, I'm not going to say that game's going to be forgot because it's hard to forget that, but it's in the back of your mind. It's in the past. You move on. Speaking of moving on, we have to take a quick break here on the My Local Radio Sports Network Homefield Advantage. I'm Aaron Poling. That's Anthony Colasuno. When we come back from commercial break, Anthony will take us through Bridger Valley Soccer that happened last week.
Life is better in the country. KNYN. Fort Bridger, Evanston, Woodruff, 99.1. The country you want to be in.
Hey there, I'm Jake Major, your local Medicare and insurance benefits advisor for the Bullock Agency of Wyoming. With over 25 years of experience protecting families in rural America, we understand the importance of having affordable insurance coverage. Whether you're searching for extra coverage or looking to understand and switch your Medicare options, I can help you find a range of top-rated insurance companies and tailor-made packages based on your needs. Call me, Jake Major, today at 307-209-4685 and let's discuss your insurance options. We're the Bullock Agency of Wyoming when benefits matter.
When you have an emergency, choose Bear Lake Memorial Hospital. Open 24/7, the professional emergency room staff is trained for trauma, medical, cardiac, pediatric, orthopedic, and obstetric emergencies. Bear Lake Memorial is a critical access level 3 trauma center, offering immediate access to radiology, lab services, surgery, and internal medicine consults. The ER teams are well-trained professionals who are ready to act. When you have an emergency, Bear Lake Memorial Hospital, the most caring hospital on earth.
Out here, we've always worked remote. Out here, stress usually refers to the pull on a rope. Where a stroll in the city is also a stroll in the great outdoors. Where work is a way of life, and life is good. Out here, the backyards are big, and the deals, they're even bigger. This is southwestern Wyoming, and it's where you can get the biggest deals on a vehicle you want with plenty of hometown hospitality. Heritage Auto, your hometown dealer with the biggest deals.
Welcome back inside the Les Schwab Plains Tires broadcast studio. We want to thank Union for sponsoring our broadcast studio as well, as we went over the Evanston Red Devils opening week of soccer in the first half of the show. Now, Anthony Colasuno is going to take us through the Bridger Valley. Anthony.
Yeah, we'll start out with the Lyman Eagles, who are up in Orland for the Pinnacle Cup Soccer Tournament. And both the boys and the girls played 3 games during that stretch on Friday. The Lady Eagles lost to Buffalo 2-1. Buffalo, of course, are a really good team. They've gotten votes in the Wyo Preps coaches and media polls for girls soccer. So overall, that 2-1 loss, a 1-goal differential type of game, you take that.
Yeah.
It could have been a situation of, that was our opening game of the year. Buffalo already played, I think, 1 or 2 games. So a little more seasoned than the Lady Eagles. And on Saturday, the second day, Lyman with a 3-0 win over Pinedale. So that's always good. Of course, that game doesn't count towards conference record yet because it's a tournament matchup, but always a great way to get that, first win of the season in the second game of the year, but also when you're going to be seeing this Pinedale squad 2 more times.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to get a little bit of a mental edge, shutting them out in a game, scoring 3 goals, and you have conference play still left with that team. It's kind of a mental edge that the Lyman girls have taken over the Pinedale Wranglers,
especially with it being also a neutral site event as well. Because with these type of tournaments, you have fans from both teams there, but with it being so far traveling distance wise, Pinedale to Warland and then Lyman to Pinedale, that's a true neutral site advantage. True neutral site tournament host. Advantage for Warland, of course, but being the home team. And then in the Constellation final, Douglas beat the Lady Eagles 8-1, so they are 1-2 on the season going into this week. Their only game this week, Wednesday, the Bridger Valley Classico versus Mountain View. I'll be there live on the call for that one. It's going to be a really, really good one. And it looks like the weather is going to hold up for Wednesday, so it looks like we will have a beautiful Wednesday for soccer. And switching to the Lyman boys, their first game on Friday, a 3-0 loss against Buffalo. And, of course, hearing from the coaching staff, this is practically a brand new team, but also a new coach in Cody Erdley.
Yeah, there's a lot to really, once you get into games, that when you get a new coaching staff, more so I think than a new team, you have to learn new formations. You have to learn a new way to play. And I think that's hard. I think it's good that it's happening with basically a brand new team. A lot of young players who haven't been in the system as long as, seniors were last year in the system that they played. But it's going to take some time to get used to the system, to get used to playing with each other, to know where to go. Because a lot of soccer, I feel like once you pass the ball, a lot of it is where you move to after you pass to get yourself back open. Because it feels like give and goes have been key throughout the entirety of this year so far that I've seen. So just kind of learning the new system and learning where to go, learning where to be, learning how to give your teammates an outlet. All of that stuff comes in when you have to learn a new coach.
Yeah, and speaking of teammates, also communicating with your teammates on the pitch as well. As for Saturday on the second day of the tournament, Lyman lost 7-0 to Newcastle, and then they lost their last game 2-1 to Pinedale. The Wranglers won 6-4 in a shootout. So obviously, you're not going to see Buffalo and Newcastle until the state tournament if the Eagles do make it to there.
Yep.
But Pinedale, you're going to be seeing 2 more times in the year, and kind of the same thing with the Lady Eagles. Yes, the Lady Eagles did win against Pinedale, and the boys lost to Pinedale. But losing in a penalty shootout is not the worst thing in the world.
Absolutely not. And penalty shootout to me is kind of it's a weird way in most shootouts to end a game, I think, because you spend an entire game trying to beat a defense, and then suddenly to decide the game, we take the defense off the field. It's just you and the keeper. But I get why that is, and I understand why that is. And, if this was a regular season game, because we talked about, or no, I take that back, because 3A still goes to the shootout.
Yes.
If it was a regular season game, it'd probably be the same. But, hey, 2-1, losing in a penalty shootout, that's a pretty good start to the year, that's a pretty good start against a conference opponent that they're going to get to see 2 more times, and I wouldn't be shocked if they're able to take 3 points against them one time.
Oh, definitely. Couldn't agree more in that scenario, and especially with how close it being and going into a penalty shootout. And so the Lyman boys start 0-3 in the season, but also with these tournaments, you learn a lot through these events. And of course, playing 2 games on Saturday, that's going to take the legs from under you pretty quickly.
Yeah, but I think it'll help them in the long run, because if you can play 2 80-minute games in a day, just imagine how much easier one 80-minute game in a day is going to be. And obviously, these athletes are in great shape, but it's just a little bit different when you get into a game and the legs start to go on you a little bit around the 60th minute. And that's just something you have to continue to learn to work through and plus getting 2 games in a day, I think that makes that a lot easier. So I do kind of like the format of this tournament. It might not help you on the day of the tournament, but I think going forward, it's going to pay off massively for the Lyman Eagles, both sides.
Couldn't agree more. And of course, Lyman's only game this week is against the Mountain View Buffaloes in the Bridge Valley Classico. Girls scheduled for 3 p.m., boys scheduled for 5 p.m. I'll be live on the call from Eagle Stadium Wednesday afternoon for that matchup. We'll take a quick little break here and then get to the Mountain View Buffaloes segment. This is Homefield Advantage presented by Jake Major with the Bullock Agency of Wyoming and Bear Lake Memorial Hospital.
Life is better in the country. KNYN, Fort Bridger, Evanston, Woodruff, 99.1. The country you want to be in.
Welcome back live into Home Field Advantage presented by Jake Major with the Bullock Agency of Wyoming and Bear Lake Memorial Hospital. And now we're going to kick it off into the Mountain View Buffaloes segment. We'll start out with the girls. Only one match last week, their home opener versus Lander Valley, and it was a 6-0 loss for the Lady Buffaloes. And, of course, against conference rival, it does sting a little bit. But with Lander, they have a player named Blue Blackburn, had a hat trick in that game. And when you have a player like that that can score 3 or more goals in a contest, there's nothing much you can do.
Yeah, that's a player you have to look out for, and sometimes star players just make star player plays, and that's kind of what happened, I believe, in that game. You give up 6 goals. That's probably not the start of the season you want to, but like we said, it's also the first game of the year. The legs, you have to find the legs, and you also have to find, how you're going to play with each other throughout the year, and unfortunately for the Lady Buffs, it kind of started off on the wrong foot, but there's always a way to bounce back as they have a couple opportunities this week.
Yes, and also, going back to that game and talking with head coach Kelsey Van Dusen as well, she said, 6-0 loss is not the greatest thing in the world, but she was proud of the way her girls competed, especially after losing some great seniors last year, and also having a freshman keeper in net. She said Emily Anderson did an amazing job in net, especially in her debut as a freshman on the varsity level.
Yeah, that's one thing that you really have to learn is last year you had those seniors, not necessarily you relied on them, but those seniors kind of knew how to play with each other and kind of knew where to be, where now you're learning different players and different likes. Does the player like to take the pass on the left foot? Does the player like to take the pass on the right foot? Just certain things like that. It's only a 2-inch difference of whether you pass it a little further ahead or a little further behind, but it makes all the difference to that player that's trying to possess the ball and escape a defender all at once.
Yeah, as the Lady Buffaloes take on the Pinedale Lady Wranglers today and then the Lady Eagles tomorrow. And kickoff for today's matchup versus Pinedale. Girls at 3 p.m., boys at 5 p.m. I'll be live up at Pinedale High School for that 3A conference matchup. We'll take another quick break here and then do the boys segment for Mountain View High School. This is Home Field Advantage.
If you've never heard a mechanic say they truly care, then you've been at the wrong place. Stacy's Repair in Woodruff is a family-owned and operated business open since 1992. Offering all types of maintenance and repair services, you can be sure your vehicle is operating at its best. Whether your vehicle is older or the newest model, gas or diesel, we fix and maintain them all. Also offering chip repair, windshield replacement, and tires. When your vehicle needs a mechanic, bring it to the ones who truly care. Stacy's Repair in Woodruff.
Founded in 1938 with hopes and dreams of serving the Bridger Valley, Benedict Trading Company was started. Now 85 years and 3 generations later, Benedict's Ace is still serving the Bridger Valley. At Benedict's Ace, you'll find all your home improvement needs. If you're wanting to update the color of your walls, they have all the supplies you need. Changing or fixing your faucet or needing to change out a light fixture can be done with ease. Time to add a backyard paradise? Stop in at Benedict's Ace for all your barbecue, patio furniture, lawn maintenance, and gardening needs. Stop in and visit their friendly staff at 1080 North Highway 414 in Mountain View.
At Reese Auto Service in Lyman, you will find highly skilled mechanics who will get the job done right the first time. They work on anything from light line jobs of tire alignments, suspension work, and oil changes to heavy line jobs of engine replacement, differentials, and all powertrain components. Make sure all your recreational vehicles are working at top speed by getting them checked at Reese Auto Service in Lyman so your time having fun doesn't end early. Reese Auto Service, 541 State Highway 413, Lyman.
When it comes to professional propane service, you can always count on the team at T7 Propane in Woodruff. With a focus on safety, quality product, and excellent service for each customer, you'll always call T7 first. When you work with the professionals at T7 Propane, you're working with the best. For all your propane needs, call T7 Propane in Woodruff, Utah, 435-793-4208.
Welcome back live into Homefield Advantage, presented by Jake Major with the Bullock Agency of Wyoming and Bear Lake Memorial Hospital. And now we're into the boys' second segment of Mountain View Soccer. And the home opener versus Lander Valley, I'll describe it as an emotional mangle overall for both sides. Lander went up 2-0 at half, and it looked like the Tigers may walk away with a win. But then Nash Picola with 2 goals, one from the penalty spot after Lander Valley had a handball penalty committed against them. And the second one was a beautiful cross from Aiden Harmon into the box. And Nash Picola with the amazing finish as well, tied 2-2. And then with about 4 minutes left to go in the game, by that point, Coulter Timms, who is typically the starting keeper for the Buffaloes, was dealing with an ankle injury throughout the first half. He had a huge bandage around his ankle in the second half, and Coach Picola decided we need to give our starting keeper some rest here. So they brought in Casey Walker, the backup keeper, and Casey had a great play on the ball. It just barely got chipped over him. He actually even got a fingertip on the ball, and it just trickled to the back of the net. And one of the Buffalo's defensemen tried saving time, but could not. So a 3-2 win for Lander Valley in the very late stages. Overall, a good game between both sides.
Yeah, it just stings in the final 4 minutes, giving away the lead where you'd earn a draw, or at least you'd earn penalty shots. Mm-hmm. In the 3A, but I mean, heck of an effort to come back, and sometimes it just feels like the wind just lets out of the sail completely when you work all that hard to come back, and then they get one on you, and that's the importance to me of getting off to a good start. Everyone loves a good comeback victory, but what I don't think we think about in comebacks is just how grueling it is to try to come back and how much effort it takes to get back into the game, and when you do, now you got to finish it off, and unfortunately, the Buffs weren't able to do so, but they get that team again, and I think when they get that team again, they're going to be ready to go this time, and I think if they get off to a better start, that might be a different game. Plus, shout out to Nash Picola, 2 goals in the opening game. That's what you expect out of your best player, is to be your best player when your team needs it. He was able to take the Buffs back and nearly earn them a point.
And Nash Picola had 9 goals in the season last year, so he's already, above 2 goals per game average already. We'll see what he can do today against Pinedale at 5 p.m. is the scheduled kickoff for the boys. But sitting down with Coach Picola, she just said the effort versus Lander Valley was there. She was so proud of her team, especially with it being the opening game. And Lander Valley already had 2 games underneath their belt facing Jackson and Cody. So definitely a great showing by the Buffaloes, and they dominated that second half.
Yeah, it would make sense. It would make sense that Lander's able to come out to a 2-0 lead when it's your first game. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say hesitant, but you're still trying to kind of feel your way into the season, where 2 games into the season, you're ready to go, raring to go almost at that point. And I think that kind of puts the team at a disadvantage that hasn't played yet when you're playing a team that has played. And that's kind of what we saw in the first half of that game. So it was a great job by the Buffaloes to make some adjustments in the second half, come back and play really well. That has to make you feel good heading into today's contest.
Definitely. And today's contest, the Lady Buffaloes kick off at 3 p.m., the boys at 5 p.m., and of course tomorrow is the Bridger Valley Classico. Just like we said earlier, Mountain View versus Lyman down at Lyman High School. I'll be live on the call for today's game and tomorrow's game, of course. And that would do it for this week's for Tuesday's episode, of Home Field Advantage, presented by Jake Major at the Bullock Agency of Wyoming and Bear Lake Memorial Hospital. Anthony Colasuno alongside Aaron Pauling, signing out.